Welcome to Japanatron.
Hello and welcome to Japanatron. My name's Dave Pavlina. Japanatron is a podcast about Japan and life in Japan and Japanese culture. So let's jump right in. Today's topic, I want to talk about health, and specifically what Japan taught me about health. And these are things since moving to Japan, these are things kind of embedded in Japanese culture that I think are pretty healthy practices. And really, I think maybe other countries and cultures could really benefit from these things that I've learned. And I'm going to talk specifically about things like in America, comparison to American culture and the health over there, because I'm American. So let's get started. The first thing, and probably the most important, is that Japan really taught me how to eat. And this sounds silly, of course, but you know, in America, and this is a common hot topic, especially with me, is really America's lost its ability to properly feed itself. I mean, it's just insane. And like, for example, the portioning. It's just ridiculous. You go to a restaurant in the U.S., and most of the time, the portion you receive is like for at least two people, maybe even three. And it's just insane. I mean, the focus in my home country is on the quality, on the quantity. I'm sorry, the quantity over the quality. Whereas in Japan, really the focus is on the quality. Now, true, you know, you might argue this is the typical marketing thing, is that but it's more expensive. And I don't know. I mean, this is a tough call to make because really, over time, yeah, you might be saving money with the American diet. It might be cheaper, but really, it's taken quite a toll on your health. So, and let me just say, the fact that Mayor Bloomberg of New York tried to ban, large soda in New York, he just tried to ban large soda. I think that makes a statement about how messed up the eating and the diet in America is. And I think Japan really, really taught me, it just really returned me back to normalcy. Okay, number one, the portions in Japan are more normal. Okay. Second of all, they also are really into family-style meals. And this is pretty cool because it's not just your own plate. You get to share, and you might get to try a wide variety of dishes. So instead of just ordering one thing like steak and potatoes, you get to try tons of other dishes. So like maybe it's almost like a Thanksgiving dinner. And in a way, I think that actually kind of maintains the portion a little bit better because, number one, the plates in Japan, physically, the plates are actually just smaller. So you're not going to load up this giant plate that's like a serving platter of food. You'll take, a little bit at a time from this family-style meal, and there's not as much pressure to just finish everything that's on your plate. Because you're kind of dishing it out in these smaller little plates. It's almost like an appetizer-sized plate, and this is really common in Japan. Of course, another reason, and I've touched on this before, is the fish and rice base. I mean, that's just really a good way to. This is a great base for a healthy diet. Fish and rice. You can't really go wrong with that. So the other thing that Japan does well, and this is especially in big cities like Tokyo, is they don't have the culture of like stocking up at Costco, and just filling your massive refrigerator with like a month or two of food, which is then stored for long periods of time before consumption. This is kind of the American style, the SUV, you go drive down to Costco on the weekend and you got food for the next 2 months. Big cities like Tokyo, they don't have this culture. And, I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably cities like New York don't have this culture either because they have that really dense city center with a really great public transportation system. So they got it kind of more the mom and pop system, the smaller shops. You buy it and you eat it that day. And I think that's a good idea because the food is going to be fresher, you're not storing it as long, and really you can't go wrong with that again. So there's number one. Japan taught me how to eat. Another thing Number 2, Japan got me into tea culture. Oh my god, how great is this? I was missing out so big time. And really, if you've never lived or experienced a country with tea culture, especially Eastern tea culture, you're really missing out. I mean, this is insanely great. Let's see. My favorite teas, jasmine and oolong. Oh my god. I mean, again, you cannot go wrong with tea. It is 0 calories, 0 calorie hydration. And in the East, unlike I'd say in the West, they almost never sweeten the tea. And that's really a tragedy in the West, is, you get this passion fruit iced tea, and it's sweetened or something. Now, a lot of restaurants in the U.S., especially in places like California, the health conscious California, they're giving you the unsweetened passion fruit tea and all that. But I would say just in general in Japan, there's just better and stronger tea culture here. You find tea in half-liter bottles, in vending machines all over the place, and really not so much soda. There's not really the pop culture, pardon the stupid pun, that the U.S. has in Japan. Coffee is popular here, though. And coffee always gets a bad rap as, they just say tea is just better for you. But, coffee is 0 calorie unless you, dump tons of sugar and milk and whatever in there. But I would just say the tea culture in Japan is really awesome, and it's really, I've really gotten into it. And it's really interesting because in Japan, you can just chug a bottle of tea, like during a workout or something like that. And I've really never thought of doing that ever in the US. I think most Americans would find that kind of odd to like chuck a bottle of tea. Chug. Sorry, messed up on my verbs there again. Chug a bottle of tea, like after an exercise workout or something. So, if caffeine is a concern, which it is if you like tea, because jasmine and oolong both have caffeine, there's also this tea called mugicha, which is based on wheat, which is heavenly, and it's often given to kids. And I remember when I took my 2-year-old daughter to the U.S., people were just really shocked by the fact that she was drinking wheat tea. They're like, "What is she drinking?" She's like, "She's drinking tea." Because the typical little kid drink in the U.S. is like apple juice, which is fine. It's fruit juice, but it is loaded with calories, and it still is sugar. True, it's like quote unquote natural sugar, but it is still sugar. And you're raising kids on sugar. You're getting them into the sugar, which then the next step, it's almost like apple juice is a gateway drug, which then leads to like soda, and then it's all downhill from there. I mean, it's just a culture of just way too many calories. Whereas if you have a culture of tea, it's 0 calorie hydration, and you raise kids on tea. And as odd as it sounds to a culture like the U.S., which it was odd to me for a while, tea is awesome. It is just awesome. And it's just so versatile. There are herbal teas and caffeine-free teas and all these kind of things that the East does that the West just kind of pigeonholes tea into this kind of category. Whereas I think Asia in general just does, hey, tea is just for everything. It's just way more versatile. So tea, you gotta love it. Moving on, number 3. Japan really got me into gargling. Japanese people love this. They love gargling. And you often hear like old Japanese men just doing it in the most loud and obnoxious manner possible. And they're really into gargle culture. They love this. They're big believers in it. And I don't think it's necessarily for the teeth and mouth hygiene, like what I associated gargling with in the U.S., but really like general health, things like preventing colds and things like that for gargling. And specifically, they sell this dark brown gargle. I think it's dark brown because it's based on iodine. I'm going to go on a limb and say that. And you mix this stuff with water and you gargle it. And it does taste medicine-y. I will say that. It's not like Listerine. Listerine is medicine-y, like the old school, traditional, that golden color Listerine. It does have a medicine-y taste, but it's not overwhelming because it is diluted. And Japan really, in general, doesn't do like those strong flavors of stuff. They don't really have the strong chemicals that the U.S. is really a big fan of. So, it is. I have gotten used to it. And they say that in Japan, when you feel a cold coming on, they say to start gargling this stuff like crazy. And I gotta say, this stuff works. There have been a number of times where I've felt, like that feeling like, oh my god, I think I'm coming down with a cold. You're just on the brink. And if you don't do something quick, it's just gonna turn into a full-on cold, and you're screwed. And in the US, people would usually say load up on vitamin C. And this is a common thing, and I think this is kind of bullshit. Because I remember at UCLA sitting in a statistics class, and the teacher ran through this statistical example talking about vitamin C and colds, and he proved through statistics that it was bullshit. And I kind of agree with that, because vitamin C just doesn't seem to always do it. I think it's just kind of one of those things that's an urban myth. But with the gargling, I really do think it works, and Japan has converted me. I am also a big believer in gargling. And I sound like an old man saying this, but I really wish in the U.S., I'm sure you could find it if you really looked at maybe at an Asian store or something, that brown gargle, because it's incredible. And it's cute because in traditional Japanese style, they put like this cute little anime character on it. This like it's like a hippopotamus, and his little like hippopotamus baby, and they're both gargling this stuff. I'm a big believer in it. Gargling, hell yeah. Good for you, Japan. You've converted me. Okay, number 4, moving on. Socialized medicine. This one's kind of controversial because, especially as an American, I'm really into individual freedom. And there's always that common controversy, that common criticism of socialist anything, that really you're just saying that the general public can't take care of themselves, so they need the all and powerful and wise government to take care of the general population. And you have to surrender your freedom, surrender your power of choice to certain systems like retirement or medicine, and you have to let Papa Government take care of you. And yeah, that's a common criticism, and I share that criticism, especially when it comes to retirement. If it's one thing I miss about the US, it's the power I have over my own retirement savings. I can choose what kind of investments it goes in. There are a lot of optional programs in the US that I can participate in or not participate in, and the tax savings do encourage you to participate, but they don't force you to participate. And when I am participating, I have a lot of control over where my money's going, and I can see how my money is doing and if it's growing or whatnot. So there's the common criticism when it comes to anything that's socialist. However, when it comes to medicine, I will say that the general advantage of socialist medicine that I've noticed from living in Japan is that people just kind of get on your ass. It's almost like socialist medicine is like a nagging mother. It just kind of nags you about getting health checks, about losing weight, and they just kind of get on your ass about stuff. And in a way, it's good, because it just kind of gives you a good kick in the ass, So I'll give you some examples. Number 1, every year at my office, we have a yearly health check. And the office manager sends out an email to everybody that says, you got to get your yearly health check. This is where we're doing it. Call this number. Here's what you got to do. You got to sign up, blah, blah, blah. Postcards will come from the city office sometimes. Free health check. You can get a free health check. Also during flu season, which is, like right now, the HR woman will send another email out at her office saying, hey, you can get your flu shot. And this is all, by the way, paid for by the company or the government, so it's really zero cost. So there's really no reason not to do this. And they there's these emails and postcards that just keep coming, and they kind of pester you. And really, the company, I believe, is required to basically encourage you to get your health check. I do not know what happens if you do not get your health check. I don't know what happens. So they just kind of keep pressuring you with all this obnoxious spam type stuff to just get your body checked out every year, get a flu shot, and blah, blah, blah. So when you go to the health check, and I'll never forget this, every year I go to the health check, and it's very socialist. I gotta wear like the same pajamas. It feels very communist. I gotta put on the same outfit, and I gotta sit in this giant waiting room with a bunch of other dudes all wearing the same like pajamas, and we gotta go through this system. And one step is I gotta pull up my shirt, and then some nurses, like it seems like 2 or 3 of them, I don't know why they need so many, they measure my belly to see how overweight I am. They literally just put a measuring tape around my stomach. And they're kind of giggling as they're measuring my belly. And let me tell you, nothing on earth will motivate you more to lose weight and to exercise than that yearly health check, with a bunch of young, relatively good-looking and cute nurses measuring your stomach, your bare-ass stomach, every year. So that's really what motivates me to keep working out and keep eating relatively healthy, is that goddamn yearly health check where I got to pull up my shirt, and I do not want this big-ass fatty spare tire to flop out in front of them. I want like a ripped six-pack, because that's awesome. And that's really what motivates me. And hey, that's socialist medicine, man. That is socialist medicine. That is the power of it. Okay, another thing during this health check, and this is actually before it, is I have to fill out this questionnaire about all my habits, about how much I drink, how much I exercise, how much sleep I get, if there's anything I want to talk about. So, again, that's another form of pressure that I think Japan really does well with their socialist system. Now, you're right, I could totally lie my ass off on this thing, but, they're going to find out because they're going to take a blood test. They're checking my pee, they're checking my poopy. They know what's going on. They know how much I'm drinking. They know everything about me because they've looked at my poopy. So, really, you can't lie on that questionnaire because they're going to figure out the truth anyway. Okay? And there's going to be a doctor or a nurse or both. They're just going to give you a hard time. If you're not in the greatest of health, you got like a spare tire, you're drinking too much, you're not getting enough sleep, they're going to figure out and they're just going to give you shit. They're going to give you a hard time about it. And basically the idea here is to kind of like pressure you to get healthy. And good for you, Japan, man. Good for you. That works. It works for me. It certainly pressures me. And on a wider scale, I would say socialist medicine goes beyond just the kind of social pressure from the system itself, but it moves beyond. I mean, you got the government pressuring you, you got my company, like your company pressuring you, you got HR, saying you got to get this health check, here's a free flu shot, blah, blah, blah. And then you got society, and this is kind of beyond the socialist medicine system, but Japanese in general are slender. I would say they're more slender than Americans in general, generally speaking. And that is pressure as well. So that really works well. When you have a slender, healthy eating, health-conscious population that you're living amongst, then, the pressure is there to stay healthy. And it really works. If you're going to live in a city where almost everybody is overweight, then really it's just acceptable to become overweight and live an unhealthy lifestyle. So if you're going to live in that environment, then you'll probably become overweight and live an unhealthy lifestyle as well. Just because there's really no social pressure to stay healthy, to stay thin. Everybody else is fat, so yeah, I don't care. I'll do it too. It doesn't really matter. So Japan really does that well. Is that I'd say in general, it's a pretty slender, health-conscious population here. So they really do a good job of that. So good for you, Japan. You taught me the value of that. Okay, another one. I think I'm on number 5. Japan, and especially big cities like Tokyo, They have really, really taught me the incredible power and value of natural exercise. Now, this is exercise that you don't really have to think about. It's not like you're scheduling, an hour or two out of your day to go to the gym and work out. It's not something you make time for. It is just exercise that is built into your daily routine. For example, your morning commute has 30 minutes of walking, for example. Mine probably has, I'd say, about 20 to 25 minutes of walking every day. And in some cases, I actually get off a station early before my actual stop, because there's a beautiful park in central Tokyo that I can just walk through from the station before to my office. And it's a nice, gorgeous walk, especially in the morning. And I do that to add actually even more time to my morning commute. Again, it's just something built into my commute. And this is the most powerful and most valuable form of exercise because it is so easy to do. It is just a habit that I don't ever have to think about, really. It's just I just do it automatically. It's just like sleeping or eating. And it's brilliant. And I think other cities, especially cities with really great public transportation, have this. So I'm not saying this is particular to Japan or even Tokyo. I'm sure cities like New York with great public transportation have this as well. Cities like LA, hell no. Hell no. This is why I can never move back to LA. If I ever choose to go back to the US, I'd have to choose a city that conveniently allows for this, because LA gets an F on this. Cities like New York, or I've even heard, I've been into the show Portlandia lately, and I've heard that Portland, Oregon has really great public transportation. So that's possibly a city I could live in, because it looks like a city I could possibly build this natural exercise into my daily routine. Is incredibly powerful. And in fact, I think it's probably one of the lesser known advantages in cities with really great public transportation. People always just think about the convenience or the money-saving properties of a city with really great public transportation. But this natural exercise thing, to me, is probably the number one advantage. If you can live in a city not only without having to own a car, which is awesome by itself, but also a city with that public transportation, you get lots of exercise just from your daily life in that city. And that really is incredible. And that is something that Japan, with its superior rail system, does incredibly well throughout its largest cities. The countryside, not as well, because you need a car often. But even when I lived in the countryside, I did not own a car for my 2 years out in the countryside, and the bike was incredible. I got a ton of exercise from that bike, and I also got to see a lot of the city and the countryside areas that I probably never would have if I was, stuck in a car all day or something, because you really get to experience the environment, so to speak, on the bicycle. God, my English is terrible. All right. So, to summarize, those are the things that Japan taught me about health. And thank you very much, Japan. I really appreciate it, because you have made this American all the more healthy with your culture. So, thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Again, if you're interested in Japanatron, go to Japanatron.com. I got all my links up there, all the Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff up at the top. Maybe if you have time, leave me a comment. I like to hear from listeners if there's any of you out there listening to this. It also helps motivate me to continue doing this show. So yeah, thank you very much, and have a good day. You have a very good day or evening or whatever. Toodles!
Welcome to Japanatron. Japanatron.
You have received this transmission from the Comedy Podcast Network. For more shows, visit comedypodcastnetwork.com.